Okay, so I'm here with Danielle today. We're just chilling, drinking some tea, and just exploring some different aspects of design. We've been meaning to get together for quite some time, so I'm really grateful for you taking the time, especially now that you're so busy. You got like a bunch of clients coming and really stepping in it. So yeah, I'm excited. We wanted to talk about some open throat aspects with human design and see where it goes. So
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe our original intention, was to talk about the throat and the throat gates and just how the throat mechanism operates, because so much of the genome and how the mechanisms work in a chart, everything in everyone's chart is really pointing to the throat, right? So each one of us are a piece of the shattered mirror, right? So the great shattering, not the big bang. We have the shattering of the mirror, and we each have a piece of this, the crystal that gives us access to understanding our consciousness and what we are processing out in existence. And we are here to relay our uniqueness through our throat. So it is really an important center and important to understand. And whether you have it defined or undefined, there's a lot of information that you can get from that. Both Brittany and I have an undefined throat. And when I was, before I got into all this stuff, I used to think that I had a throat blockage and that I couldn't really speak how I wanted to speak and things didn't come out right. And over the years of learning about it and learning about my truth and how to enter into things correctly and when to speak, I've learned that it's actually a huge gift. And I'm super happy that I have an undefined throat. Everyone's chart is perfect, right? So whatever you have, it's perfection. And you just want to learn to use it based on your codes. But having an undefined throat means that we're a minority, right? So most people actually have it defined because the throat center has the most possibilities for definition, meaning the most, possibilities for gates because it has the most gates, right? Out of all the centers. So 71% of people have it defined. The other 29% have it undefined. So if everything in everyone's chart is really trying to come out the throat, because this is how we translate our experience of existence to each other, to show each other our side of the mirror, like, oh, this is from my vantage point, this is what I'm seeing. Basically, everyone has like this pressure to share, to bond, to explain what we're experiencing in our unique way. And if we are correct in our alignment, being who we're truly here to be, we can be a clear outer authority, a way to really impact people and to communicate our truth and our consciousness in like a clear way if we understand our mechanisms and we're not coming from that distortion. So what I find really interesting is that each gate in the throat is actually a representation of your role in life, and it's a particular voice. I didn't read about this next thing I'm about to talk about, but I've kind of come up with a visual of how to understand it. We know in the beginning there was the word, right? And that the word or the frequency creates our reality. In some ways that is true. So using your correct voices, your correct frequencies, your correct pathway of air does actually create certain things that you are either able to handle the consequences of, if it's your truth in your voice, or it creates consequences you can't handle, right? If you're using other voices that are not yours. So this visual that I have is like, there's like a box here, and that each one of us has different portals of where the energy, the air can go through. Our larynx opens up and it allows the airway to create sounds. Back like many, many thousands of years ago, we didn't have this. There was a mutation that happened that dropped the larynx and allowed us to have more airflow, so that we were able to articulate and make more kinds of sounds. So we were able to explain things differently and have language, right? The creation of language. And before all that, we were able to drink and breathe at the same time, just like babies do now. So yeah, there was a mutation that happened in the larynx. And also that allowed us to communicate more complexly. And basically, it allowed us to manifest in different ways. Okay. Manifestation is the theme of the throat, and we manifest in two different ways, either through communication or direct action. So some of the throat gates are direct action, and some are, we manifest through communication to see if what we're trying to manifest is actually viable, right? So we'll communicate it and see, through communication if it's viable. So we have this box or this cube here that has these different like keyholes. And the way I think about it is like the air is meant to go through there in a certain structure, like each gate. And they each have their different like structuring, their different keyholes that when the air goes in, what comes out after is different. Okay. Communication is not meant to be mind directed. We understand that the pressure that comes from the head center and from our mind is in order to make sure we communicate correctly, but it's not like I'm thinking about what I'm going to say right now and then saying it. It is actually just coming out. So in a sense, we're like channeling our air. And if we use our correct voices, then when we communicate to people, they can feel the truth. They can feel the communication, the impact, and we're able to deliver or transfer over, this information and share our experience of existence. So we'll probably go through each gate or I don't know where the call is going to go. But Brittany, what has your experience been with having an undefined throat?
Yeah, that was so cool. Thank you for sharing too. So in this experimentation of the open throat, I've noticed throughout my life, I also felt like I was wounded in my throat, and I kind of pinpointed this one story, that I had and carried that with me. And I also really noticed that it was connected to my sacral. Like I would notice that if like I had this wounding around like singing, and then my mom laughing at me when I was a child. And then I was like, promised myself that I would never sing in front of anybody ever again. And so like the teacher would call soloists up, and I would just get this knot in my stomach because I wanted to sing, but I like couldn't allow myself to like be seen and do that. And so that's been something on my journey where like song circles and actually like singing in front of like hundreds of women at this like Wild Woman Fest, like that was a really big like healing opportunity for me. And I've also just noticed in groups where I really love to allow the defined throats to speak first and allow like other people to speak and share their ideas and visions. And then I find also, because I have a defined head, like I find that like a lot of people say what I'm thinking. And so I really don't have to say as much like as it comes around to me. And also I really love being invited to share my voice, because then it lands. I just noticed that I noticed so much that if I'm trying to interject into a conversation, I'll be looked at like, why are you talking? Basically, it's like, why are you talking right now? And then they'll just like no acknowledgement, just get back to their own conversation. But if I wait until I'm invited to speak, then it lands. And that's what I love. Like I love being received. And so I've just learned over this experiment that I'll wait, to respond.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's super interesting. Like even when you were talking about the whole thing with the singing, like I have like almost a like exact story as you. I'm like, wow, like, and that's crazy because you also have the 22. I have the 22. It's leading up to the throat, which has a lot to do with music and singing, as well, and all that. But yeah, it's very interesting. And I've even had similar things about like singing. I've been asked to sing and like at ceremonies and stuff. And I do get like kind of nervous because I'm like, because because having an undefined throat, like, you don't always control what comes out of it. And you have to learn to go with it. It's like, oh, well, shit, that's how that came out. Okay. So
Oh,
yeah. And I definitely relate to what you're saying too about like when other people are talking and learning to wait, and how when I was younger I would feel like, oh, I can't get a word in, or like they don't care what I have to say, and that's when I thought I had a throat blockage and all of those kind of things. But really, I've even experimented like going to places where there's more people or out to dinner or at a party or whatever, and just being silent until someone speaks to me, and like watching, because the throat center is all about attention. So people have it undefined, like there's a lot of gifts in that, and a lot of weird things also that I want to talk about. But one of the gifts is that like we know what's worthy of attention. So the not self is like trying to get attention or worried about like, how are they going to see what I'm doing? How do I get recognition? How do I get clients? How do I, those kind of things. But you can draw a lot of attention because you focus the group also on like what is worthy of attention. And so what I've noticed when I go to a party or a dinner or whatever, and I don't talk, and then all of a sudden somebody asks me a question, the second I speak, it's like all the attention. It's like, oh God, sometimes you're like, crap, too much. Like it's fun just to play with it. Something funny and interesting, and what I find like whimsical and just hilarious is that I never know how my voice is going to sound, right? Like, and even every recording I've done, it's like my voice sounds totally different. And sometimes, like I had a client, was it yesterday, I think, who was from Canada. And I noticed throughout the call, I started kind of speaking. I was like, oh, I've never been to Canada, and like, sounded like that. And I was like, oh God, I wonder if she knows. Cracking up, because you can really take on people's like mannerisms, their like how they pronounce things, their intonation, like all of their different ways of articulating and expression. And sometimes I'll just be making random sounds in the kitchen or something, and I'm like, wow, I don't know where that came from. That was a weird voice. And yeah, it's funny. I don't even notice it sometimes. Do you ever notice that?
All the time, actually. Yeah, I do. And also get like reflected back, like, oh, those are interesting noises you're like making, and like cool. But yeah, definitely like the picking up of different voices. And like with singing, for instance, like I feel like I can mimic a lot of different voices, but like if I were to try to sing like my own song, it's like way more challenging, like I don't even go there, because I'm like, I would just, I have a great time just like singing songs that I like.
Right.
Maybe in the future, but I'm not pushing it.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, I mean, and that's also like you have the 22, like I was saying, the 22.6. I also have that the exact one, 22.6. And the 22 is the inner ear. And it's a lot about hearing tones and frequencies. And the 0.6, they say you can sometimes even hear the neutrino stream. So sometimes I'll get like a ringing in my ear, and it's like, yeah, a lot of spiritual people talk about that and stuff, but it's like I can feel almost like a pressure change, and it's like a valve, and like it's like, woo, what was that?
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. It's so weird. I mean, I do get that, like, I guess some people would call it like tinnitus or something, but it's almost like a pressure. And then it's like it's like almost like I'm more present, because it's like all the other noises are kind of blocked out for a little bit. And I can just hear this frequency, and it's really interesting. And then also, this one time I was with mushrooms, sacred medicine, and my friend was driving, me home. And I heard like the mountains or something. Like it was like the song of the spheres. Like I really felt like it was just like angels or something singing. Like it was just streaming through me, and I was hearing this flowetry. And it was, the song was like, it's all within you. And I was just like, my tears were like coming down. It was one of the most beautiful songs. And I was just like, there's like the background noise, you know, but then also like this flowetry that was just coming through. And I was like, I really wish that I could capture this, but I knew that the moment that I tried, it would just, you know, leave. So I just like allowed myself to receive it. And it was probably one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard. So I don't, yeah.
Amazing. I love that. Yeah, I sometimes believe that like having an undefined throat is like the channeling aspect, you know, in some ways, but it's not channeling in the way that most people think. Like we're not channeling like other beings or stars or, you know, things like that. But it's just because you have it open. So it's like you have access to this whole realm of like sound and articulation and manifestation, communication, you know, and what to pay attention to and all of that. So yeah, I've had similar things, not necessarily with music per se, but more so with like I'll be laying in bed and like just like processing like all of this kind of stuff and like consciousness, like, oh, this is that, you know, and it's just like going through me in a way that I'm like, wow, if I don't know if I could ever capture like exactly what I'm processing right now, but it's like so profound.
Right.
So yeah, it's really cool. But yeah, I mean, I've practiced with my voices, you know, the particular ones that I have. And when I first started doing it, I was like, oh, this is kind of awkward, you know. My voices are I believe or I think. And then I also have some other flavors, which is like the 31, which is I lead or not, which I don't really ever say that, but it's more of like, yes, I'm going to step into leadership or not, right? Depending on what connects and conditions my throat, right? And my authority, of course. But yeah, saying I think and I believe have really helped me to understand more so about like what my roles are and like how my voice like can be in a way that's more truthful and just, you know, like you said, landing, you know, when you speak, because the thinker, which is the 62, is really about details and facts, right? And logic and seeing patterns and predicting the future. You know, proposing an experiment to see if we can prove it wrong or not. And the belief is like the stimulation, the storyteller, the like abstract, experiential, you know, communicating ideas, right? So that is really more my voice rather than, let's say in the past, maybe be like, well, I know this, and, you know, being like the knower. Which yes, everyone is a knower to some degree, but when you communicate, like for example, I'm supposed to be like reasonable and rational and you know, stimulating, not in a way that's like, well, I know this and blah blah blah. And you know, Brittany, you have the 45, which is the voice of the tribal leader, you know, which is about possession and it has a lot to do with money. So that's also interesting, right? So being able to communicate about your possessions and, you know, the tribe, like what do we have, what don't we have, and then also like saying I have or I don't have, but I have to do this or I don't have to do that. And how much in our spiritual communities do we see like that program of like, don't say you have to do something, say you get to do something. And it's like, no, like there are some people like Brittany, if you communicate in that way where you're like, I don't have this, da, 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 da. I have this, we don't have that, I have to do this. It is that powerful. It's a direct manifestation gate, right? But because it's an undefined throat, there's, you know, inconsistency with what you're manifesting, and that's totally fine, right? So do you normally use those voices or?
I do. And well, and but you actually like just extended it for me, because I was really just framing it in like, I have these resources or I don't have these resources. And I also feel like I struggle a bit in saying like, I don't have this, because I've been really challenged with like receiving, and or asking for help if I don't have something. But then the other part that you said, like, I have to do this or I don't have to do this, like, I guess I've been more in that flow too lately, as I've been like, I don't have to do everything, I don't have to do all the things that I was thinking that I had to do before. And I really, part of my favorite part of my chart is that 44 channel to the 26. And so I realized that that is kind of part of that pathway.
Right.
And then not having the 21 has always stuck with me. I mean, I got a reading with you many, many, many years ago, and that was just something that really stuck with me, is that you're like, find a projector who has the 21 that's aligned with your vision, that can help, like allocate these resources. And so, yeah, that's really stuck with me. So thank you for helping me with that. And I feel like I'm gonna be with doing more of these videos where I feel like, also with being a quad, right? Like, I don't feel like there's any sort of goal that I'm working towards with these. I just want to have like exploration, and also connect with like all my badass friends, like I have such an amazing network. And so like that, I feel like, is part of my gift, and just being able to share the voices of like all my friends, so
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's like lots of people that do podcasts or like host podcasts or things like that. And, especially with the network that you have and your visions and all of that, where, that can also take care of you. And, it's interesting with the 45 because it's the gatherer, and it's, you've been gathering all these resources and people and things that other people could use. And that's really awesome, and that's part of the money line, right? And it's interesting too, for anyone who has the 45 but not the 21, and we'll talk about if people have both, but they say that the 45 gets in trouble when it tries to be the 21, and the 21 gets in trouble when they try to be the 45, right? So the 45 is meant to gather and like distribute, and the 21 is meant to like control the resources and the flow, and like, okay, these people need this or that, and all of that. So it's just like gathering the resources for you. And they call it the hunter, right? So it's like hunting out where the resources are, because that's part of your chart. But that also has to be something that you enter into correctly, because this could be a place in your chart where your mind is leading you to make not self decisions, just solely on like, I'm going out to collect resources. And then with your 19, like, okay, but I have all these needs, so I got to go out and collect resources because I have all these needs. Whereas like you have the cross of rulership, which is all about people giving you things, like giving you their resources to control so that you protect them. Yeah. So for anyone watching, thanks for sticking with us. And if you've pulled your human design chart, look at your throw. What gates do you have in there? Maybe we'll do another call in the future about the rest of the gates, or just the gates, and going through that.
Just curious, did you have any, you mentioned towards the beginning that you had some sort of really interesting things that you wanted to share about the open throat. So I was curious if you mentioned those already, or if you had.
Yeah, it was just more so like the comical stuff of like the voices coming through that, like, weird sounds, or like, oh, that sounded like an old black lady, or I sounded like this old man. And they're like, like, what was that? It just sounds so funny. And yeah, one time I went over to my neighbor's house to communicate. It's like this older gentleman, and he's kind of Southern and stuff. And one of my friends went with me. And when I left, she's like, I don't know if you realize this, but you just developed like a Southern accent, like a twang, like right when I was talking to him, because he had that and I didn't even know.
I love that.
Uh, so stuff like that is really interesting. But for people who have the undefined throat, like this is something that we're becoming masters about, is the whole throat realm, which is manifestation and communication, and attention, like what's worthy of attention, what's not. So these are the things that we can be wise about. This is like the school that we're in, right? These are the classes that we're in with our open centers. And this is what we can be an expert on. And we just have to be careful not to like make decisions based on, okay, I need to go do this so I get attention, right? I need to find attention. I need to get people to see what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that can be hard, especially when you like work for yourself or things like that. I don't know about you, Brittany, but for me, it's like we can see sometimes how people are trying to get attention, like all of us, right? The world of sales and marketing and all of that. And I don't know about you, but sometimes when I see certain things, I'm like, okay, I don't want to do it that way, because it's just like you can tell like you're trying to sell the person, and like it's not, there's like no value. It's just to grab people's, clickbait, and attention seeking
Yeah.
things. And these are things like Brittany's really good at helping people with marketing and all that stuff, because you can see all that.
Yeah. Totally. That's like a whole nother, we could totally do a whole video. I love that so much. And this has been such a fantastic, I've been like feeling like this is a really important conversation to have. And I really love all these aspects and that you brought together. I really appreciate you so much. And
Love you, girl.
I love you too. Thank you for taking the time. Like let's get together sometime when it fits. And just appreciate you and thank you. You really gave me like, this is what I love about design, is like just little pieces, that you can keep on just practicing with and playing with and seeing what works, what doesn't. It's this whole grand experiment that we're all playing. So how can people get a hold of you?
Definitely. So if anyone wants a reading or to talk or anything like that, soulmapping.life is my website. I would recommend the quantum jump session. It's 4 calls. There's also an option for just 1 call. It's called a quick tune-up. So soulmapping.life. And you can also find me on YouTube at that as well, soulmapping.life, or Facebook, and or reach out to Brittany or myself. And I would love to do more sessions with you. I've got other podcasts, and on my channel, I do like a weekly video on various topics as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll include the links below, and we'll just keep the conversation going. Thank you so much, Dani.
Thanks, Brittany.
Talk soon.